What is the most common struggle a new international student have they want to help with?
There are certain themes I've noticed. One of the main, I have to start off by saying that to be an F1 student, coming all the way from another country to study at a college level in another language that is usually a second language is a phenomenal feat. And so the first thing I notice when a student shows up is their strengths. And I try to point that out to them, which they're not always feeling very connected to those strengths. But, does the average American speak one or two or even beyond one language, English? Not really. And I try to point out, look at what you've done. It's so phenomenal. But usually they're just feeling a lot of stress, being far from home, the lack of social supports and isolation, I would say. That social isolation, the longing to connect to people, to have community. And language is sometimes a barrier. And these are individuals who are really thoughtful, intelligent, but there's that thing where you want to say something, but you don't yet have the words for it because it's literally another language, even when you speak English beautifully. And some students will say to me, I'm sorry, my English isn't good. I'm like, you speak English better than people who are born and raised here, actually, some people I've met. So, and on the other hand, sometimes I try to send F1 students as a referral. I say, would you like a therapist who speaks your language? I actually have a referral. And some have told me, no, I want to speak English, not just to practice, but because they process the experience of their emotions differently when they're speaking English. That's interesting. I learned that from the students that I've seen.
You are saying when they get therapy in different language, they process the emotions differently?
That's what a few people have told me.
Wow.
So I can't make a generalization. I think that I've said to people, would you rather just express yourself more freely in the language of your country of origin? And some have said yes. Some have asked me, can you speak this or that? And I might say, yeah, a little bit, or I know 10 words. And they're like, oh, I love that. I take whatever few words I know. And people just light up. They're like, oh, I didn't expect you to say 감사합니다,
because you're just looking for connection, some kind of connection. And when you even say, those words, that just brings them like, oh, there is somebody who I can connect. Because I feel like when I was new international student, I was looking for connection, to connect with somebody so much. And you are right. The first issues are isolation, loneliness, and there's a lot of fear and stuff. What do you think they should do when they come and they're hit with all those things that they were not expecting? Because they come with, we come with so much excitement. When you come here, the reality hits you, right? What are the things they should do?
I'm a big believer that everyone has their own wisdom. So any suggestion I make is like, it isn't like a golden truth that is truth and the only version of truth, So anything I say, I think everyone has to take that and see, does that work for me? But I would say, one of the most important things is to get connected to other people. And that could be, finding a club on campus. Even if it's something you're not really excited about. Anything that doesn't make you go yuck, So I'm actually a big fan of encouraging people to do things that are like neutral and not just amazing. Because sometimes we're so overwhelmed. But for sure, if anything makes you go, oh, anime? Oh my gosh, well, I do like anime. Or, well, I'm studying computer programming. So maybe there's like a programming club on campus or, a photography club. So I would say find a club and go consistently. Those are two different things, right? Or find a class. Maybe it's a yoga class in the neighborhood that's lower cost because they have a lower cost class once a week. Or go to the beach. There's humans there. So connecting isn't just doing what we're doing, looking into someone's eyes and talking. It can be just being surrounded by people. I've told clients, when you're really lonely, just go to the library or even like a supermarket, as the bare minimum, because a lot of people are just sitting in their living room or their bedroom.
That's one of the most important lesson I learned at the beginning as a international student who didn't know anybody here, is that good things will happen when you get out of the house.
Right.
If you stay in a house, and if you have a bad thought or fearful thought, then that thought will become much more powerful. But as soon as you get out, you will not deal with that issue. You will get distracted in other things. And all the international students I spoke to, what would the advice would be for new student? Everybody said, join club. And there are so many clubs in the schools nowadays.
Right.
No matter what your interest is, there is club for that, right?
Right, there
so
is.
That's the most important thing.
Or living in Southern California, Los Angeles.
Yeah.
You know, there's free events.
Yeah.
I think sometimes students don't know about
Meetup group, right?
Meetup groups, Eventbrite.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to say, which is, you know, again, what you were saying and I'm saying, it seems kind of obvious, but I think there's a feeling of overwhelm sometimes.
Yeah.
So the first thing to do is sometimes getting help to find those places.
Yeah.
So, you know, I tell students, you know, if I have suggested something, but it's not quite what you're into, ask people on campus, the staff who are paid, it's their job.
Yeah.
Or, you know, or find a part of what therapy is we're brainstorming ideas.
Yes,
we're exploring together, you know, you know, actually I wanted to ask you this though.
Yeah.
You said when you were a student.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When was that?
I came here 2013.
Okay.
Yeah. And Santa Monica College.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And I'll tell you a little incident. So I got in a flight in India and the plane took off and something happened in my stomach. It was it was not a good feeling. It's just a little bit bad feeling. But then I was in flight and I was looking out and I forgot about it. So for a week, I stayed with somebody, some friend, right? And then I found my apartment and I dropped my bags in my room and I was alone. And suddenly a thought came in my head, like, what if I die here? Just out of nowhere, you know? And I started feeling terrible. I don't know whether it was a panic attack or I don't have the explanation, but I never felt that bad before. I feel like, you know, sink. I just sink inside and I was shaking a little bit and I'm like, nobody cares about me. What? And just such a terrible feeling. I can't even explain it. What was I feeling? But I was like, let me call my brother in India and ask him to book my ticket back. That's it. I can't. Mm-hmm. But it was a kind of a late, you know, afternoon and people in India would be sleeping. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to get out. That's it. I'm just going to get out of the house because if I stay here, I will start crying or just, I don't know what I'll do. So I just left house and I started, as soon as I got out, I felt a little better. So I started walking. I was living in Culver City. So I started walking on Palms and turned right on Overland. Mm-hmm. And there was an Indian clothing store, traditional Indian clothing store. So I just went inside and I said hi to the lady and I talked to her for 5 minutes and I just like, hi, I'm Indian and I just came here. Mm-hmm. So I talked to her for 5 minutes and, you know, it felt a little bit better, but then we had nothing to talk to each other. So after that, I got out and I started walking again and there was one restaurant. So I was like, okay, let me just go there. Luckily, it was a break time and owners were there. So they talked to me, they offered me chai, like, have a seat, have a conversation with us. Mm-hmm. So we talked and then I said like, I had this bad feeling and I don't know, I'm just new and I came here 1.5 months before the school was going to start. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you know, if you go to school and you forget about all those things.
Right, you're thrown into all the
chaos.
busyness of the chaos of the demands of school. You had a lot of time to sit alone.
Yeah, and they were nice enough to tell me like, why don't you come here? If you just, every time you feel that it's just a walking distance, just come here. And I was like, thank you so much. So I went home, 4:00, I just went there. And for a month and a half, I kept going there in the morning, evening, and then I discovered there's a temple, Hindu temple on Venice. And I just walk for almost an hour, you know, go there. And that's where I found some people and I talked to them and things kept getting better and better. So, yeah. And then again, this just, you know, that's the first time I experienced something, but, you know, just the journey dealing with loneliness, not having hard to make a friends, and even like dating was hard. So you were like, if I have a girlfriend, then I have somebody here. Yeah. But again, it's a challenging thing. So dealt with all this. You never thought that I should talk to therapists. You know, that thought never came in my mind. Okay. What I would do is that every 2 months I would go clubbing. There on Main Street on Venice, there's 2 clubs, Circle Bar and O'Brien, and party really hard till like 2-3 a.m. And that was my like reset button.
Yeah. Well, did it help? Did it feel
It
good?
helped. It helped.
Look,
It was the reset button.
Yeah, dancing your heart out. Well, now we know, when you do things with your body, it is a reset.
Yeah.
And I tell people, therapy is not enough.
Yeah.
Us talking, sometimes I'll use a guided meditation.
Yeah.
That's involving the body. But there's nothing like dancing till 2 a.m. There's just nothing like that. And I know, because I tell my clients, your homework is to go have fun. I literally tell my students that because they think or they believe or they knew they had to work so hard, much harder than the students who I think didn't come from overseas.
Yeah.
And I tell them, you deserve to have fun.
Yes.
And you must do it. You have to recharge your batteries.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, international students, first few months can be a little scared to go out, take a public transport or because it's just this stranger danger thing, right?
Yeah.
Happening. So also they are scared of, not scared, but like afraid of getting judged. Like what if I join this yoga class and I don't do good at yoga and stuff. Mostly Asian culture where there's a lot of judgment comes from the society. So you are afraid to do things or, initiate. Eventually you do, but things you said like, oh, that seems obvious to do, but people don't do it at the beginning. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's such a good point, and I think all encounters involve culture. There's no such thing as a non-cultural encounter. We all come with culture or cultures.
Yeah.
Our backgrounds may be multicultural, even different aspects, layers of identity.
Yeah.
And I love that what you're pointing out here, which is that something that might seem obvious has some complex layers, which is you're right, in certain Asian cultures, also cultures of the Middle East and other parts of the world even, this idea of status, social status, and how we present ourselves, and not to be seen. It's one thing to say, oh, who cares if people judge you? Judge is going to judge, hater's going to hate. And we love those pop songs because they give us permission to kind of break through the fear of judgment and people judging us. But on the other hand, to be human is to need to survive in society. And so we want to have social approval.
Not make mistakes.
And not make mistakes. Unfortunately, you don't learn and you don't get support unless you make mistakes. You don't learn unless you make mistakes, and you don't get support unless you get vulnerable. I mean, this story of you going to the woman in the Indian clothing store and then the restaurant, you were vulnerable. I mean, that's kind of gutsy to say, I knew and I feel terrible. I feel alone. So many people feel alone. So many people don't feel comfortable saying out loud to a stranger or a new friend how alone they feel. There's this worry about, I'm going to burden. It's not a burden. Guess what? The average human feels alone at some point in their life. And you have a right. Your emotions are valid. So the moment you showed your vulnerability was the moment you got support. And that's bravo to you, because that took courage. And I think it's tricky. We don't always get support when we're vulnerable.
No.
We don't. It's hit or miss. But what is that?
The second place helped me. First place, not as much.
The first place, not as much. Exactly. So that's why you were consistent. That's why I said, if you have to be consistent, show up to a social place and keep showing up there, or show up to a different place, mix it up. But there's a famous quote, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So,
true. So I did a lot of right thing. Would you want to add something if somebody feels that situation that you can do apart from what I did? Is there any advice would you give somebody who just has a panic attack in the first week?
Panic attack in the first week. Oh my gosh.
I don't know anybody here, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, what do you do when you have a panic attack in the first week? I think the first thing to do is to acknowledge, hopefully whoever's listening to this, to first acknowledge what you're feeling. I'm a big, big fan of know yourself, understand yourself. When you notice yourself having a panic attack, be kind to yourself, because some people will judge themselves. They'll say, oh my God, I came this far. I worked this hard. And like, look at me, I'm freaking out. What's wrong with me? Can't I just be grateful? Or they judge the situation. Like, oh my God, LA is terrible. What is this? It's not what I saw in the movies. It is, but then, that was a cool thing I saw. That's a famous place in Santa Monica. That's a famous place in Hollywood. Now I'm home alone again. This sucks, And the answer is yes, notice your preferences. Notice what you like and don't like, and name that. Oh, I don't like this. Oh, I feel that. And then ask yourself, is there anything I can do right now?
Yeah.
To be kind to myself is number one, and to change the situation.
Yeah.
So do you see how I'm not giving a direct answer? Like,
yes. Yeah.
you know, I'm go to a dance party, you know?
No, it's different on your personality, right?
Yeah. But I would say, generally speaking, you know, they say this about anxiety, because panic is a form of anxiety.
Yeah.
The general thing that they say in the field of psychology is when you have anxiety, it's a feeling of like, you know, my heart is racing, like I'm freaking out, I'm panicking. A good response is action.
Yes.
You know, so to do an action, right? So if you're feeling anxious, go on a walk, right? Yeah. If you're feeling lonely, do some research, right? Yeah. So doing an action helps. Hopefully it's a healthy action. Sometimes people do an action and it's a familiar action. It's not always a healthy behavior.
Well, you mean by people maybe try drugs or, you know,
sometimes.
Be friends with the wrong people, which is big no-no as an international student, because if you court committed any crime, that's pretty much end of your career in US as an international student. They might revoke your visa and they might, you know, send you back to your country, and it ruins your career, one, you know, mistake. So that's a really good point.
Well, I've actually never known anybody to get involved with the wrong people. Wow. In my 4 years of work, not a single student of mine has ever described anything like that. Yeah. You know, but of course therapy is confidential, you know, it's not my job to you know, comment on that. I just ask them, is this helping you? Is this truly helping you? Yeah. Sometimes people do struggle with addictions though, you know, and not just classical addictions like to alcohol or weed, but addiction to gaming, to phone addiction. Yeah. A lot of people struggle with that. And, you know, I think it's even harder as an international student because again, you can't just walk across the street and talk to someone in your language. Or, you know, you can't just like call someone because they're 12 hours away and they're asleep, right? When you're feeling terrible. So I do think that it's important to always come back to being kind to oneself. Even if someone is having an addiction or an addictive behavior, to also not judge them or judge themselves, but rather evaluate the behavior. So that's what I do. I don't say this is an addict. This is someone who has an addiction. Yes. Because guess what? You can actually change that. Yeah. So people don't have to be defined by that. Yeah. But one thing that people sometimes do is they fall back on the familiar thing that's comforting, and it's not always very helpful in the long run. It helps in the moment. Yes. It comes out even bigger, becomes a bigger problem eventually, right? It can. And that's when I'm like, great, so let's work on this, right? Yeah. And if not me, I can send you to a specialist who can help you with that. I mean, the good thing about therapy is the kinds of people who do this work are people who like hearing about problems. Yeah. We like working with addiction. You know, we like, I don't specialize in addiction, but, you know, there's a passion there. You know, the same way someone who became a dancer likes dancing, and you know, a doctor of medicine likes hearing people talk about their symptoms because they know there are solutions. Definitely. Yeah. So let's say somebody is having, you know, challenges and they are students. So international student, everybody has insurance. How do they find therapy? How do they find help in school? We really try to advertise our services at the Center for Wellness and Wellbeing. Yeah. I'm a part of the Center for Wellness and Wellbeing. It's the center that offers therapy services and to all the students on campus. Yes. And every school has that, no matter what university, they have some form of well-being center, right? Yes. They call them Counseling and Psychological Services, CAPS. Yeah. They call it Center for Wellness. Yeah. You know, they sometimes have different names, but you can ask anyone that works at any college or any university, big or small. Yeah. You're right. There usually is either a place on campus or they can give you a list of people to support your mental health. Yeah. Yeah. So they basically, first thing I would do, like I would go to maybe international department and ask them, is there any department who can help me? And then they would refer you to the department, right? And then that's where they book an appointment to see a therapist. Is that basically the way to go? Yeah, well, yeah. So they would go to the Center for Wellness, or they don't even have to walk over there. Yeah. There's a website, you know. Oh, yeah. And you can just call them. Yeah, you can. Well, there's a link, and basically you fill out an appointment request form. Yeah. You know, it's like it's a form that's like, I would like to have an appointment with a mental health, just that one appointment.
Yeah.
By the way, the one appointment isn't therapy.
Yeah.
The one appointment is just that initial first meeting, and in that form, they put their name, their email, and they answer some questions, what's the general, thing you want help with, you can even write and fill in, what are the days of the week that you're available? And then it goes into the list of people, one by one they come in, and then based on what they want help with, it's sent to the different therapists and put on our schedule. It's put on our schedules.
Yeah. So that's basically any university, any school, you go to Center for Wellness and Wellbeing, or whatever name is, and you can get access to therapy, and it's included in the insurance, so it is free, right?
Typically, it depends on the school, but most schools, they offer at least 3 to 5 meetings for free, and F1 students actually are forced to purchase insurance, health insurance, separately from the free few sessions on campus. By the way, some universities offer even more sessions.
Depends on
the school. But F1 students, I think it's a federal requirement of our government that you have to have an insurance plan. So I tell students, you paid all this money. You have a free visit to, you have a free tooth cleaning. You have a free, you can see, get glasses, a pair of glasses. Maybe you want to check your eyes. Maybe you just want to do your blood work, see how your overall health is. Because sometimes students, maybe have a physical issue and they're dealing with that. So that actually lets them find a therapist off campus who might specialize in something we don't specialize, or someone they can see long term. Because some people have like a family issue that's been going on for years. And they need more than 5 meetings with me. They probably would benefit from seeing someone every week or every other week for a year.
I remember 2.5 years in Santa Monica College, and I was physically healthy. I paid insurance every 6 months, and all I got was 2 Tylenol because one time I had a headache, and that's all I utilized my insurance, 2 Tylenol. But looking back at it, and I would love to tell I want to tell every international student, get your physical, right? Talk to therapist. And again, we discussed a little bit, but therapy is not just for like, somebody's having crisis, or I'm a broken, I need help, but it's for growth, right? When you come to new country, I realize you need to learn so many things about this. First of all, your education, but about the culture, right? About so many things. Also, you need to unlearn so many things from your culture, so you don't make certain mistakes that you've been making. And therapy can be used as, I want to grow, I want to level up my personality, I want to just be a better version of me, right? So please utilize those services. It's good for you.
Really, it's beyond good for you. I mean, I would say it's what you said about like self-growth.
Yes.
I think back in the day, decades ago, there was this idea that, to see a psychologist or see a therapist meant you have some severe psychiatric issue. You're hearing voices, Well, first of all, there's some cases where, people might hear a voice and maybe it's a memory, right? Or maybe it's a spirit, and in their culture, in someone's culture, like the voice of a spirit is a good thing, So, but I also think that therapy has changed. It's adapted, right? Just the same way that medicine has adapted, right? And there's also wisdom coming from many cultures for thousands of years, right? And therapy is a space where that is also welcome. So I want students to know that you're right. Therapy is for growth. It's for leveling up. It's for saying, you know what? I don't struggle to get out of bed every morning, but I overthink. I have a phone addiction, or I kind of, or sometimes just something happens in life. Healthy people have unexpected, painful things happen, like grief. A breakup. How many people have I seen come to me? They're so heartbroken over a breakup, and they know that it made sense to break up. They're like, I don't want to be with my ex, or I'm in an abusive relationship, and but I kind of love them. They love me too, but I know it's not healthy. It's complicated. So therapy is to help smart, intelligent people who are looking at a blind spot, or life just threw them a curveball. And it's okay to have support. And the great thing about therapeutic support is it's confidential.
That's important.
It's confidential with some exceptions about harming yourself or harming others.
Yeah.
And the confidentiality is really only broken to protect vulnerable people, and keep them healthy and safe. But yeah.
I'm just curious. When I had already bachelor's and master's from India, I needed therapy. I never utilized it, right? And I spoke with other international students who have achieved all the goals they set, for their career, and they also need therapy. They never used it. There are people who talk about like, COVID time and not being able to go to school, and I talked to my parents and it helped. One student from Santa Monica College, he talked about like, I felt loneliness and I started talking to myself in the mirror and it helped. But nobody said that I went to therapy, except for one student from Iran who again had to deal with grief, and the graduation studies was just extremely hard. She said you took help for therapy, UCLA student, but most of the people are not utilizing it. I'm just curious why that happens. Or do you have any kind of explanation for that, or what would you tell them?
Oh yeah, right. The barriers, right. This is such a great question. Yeah. It's a question I was actually speaking to a former supervisor about a few years ago, because there are those who utilize therapy and those who don't, and those who kind of know about it. Yeah. But what is that bridge, right? Yeah. And what are the barriers in that bridge? I would say some of it could be cultural, like we just talked about earlier, the stigma, therapy is for, people who have really bad issues, or or they know that therapy can be for everyday people, but their family might judge them if their family and friends found out. The other thing I will say is, I think that people, this is actually based on a theory called the stages of change theory, that people are sometimes in various stages of readiness to make change in their life. And going to therapy is it's unusual, there's no other space like it in the world. It's, the therapist isn't your friend, but they're friendly. They're not your parent, but they're very nurturing the way a parent would be. They're not a partner who hears about your deepest desires or fears, but they are there to hear your deepest, and it's actually all about the needs of the client. It's not about the therapist and, what problem they had the night before. No. So it's a very kind of, but there does need to be respect, both ways. But it's a very unusual relationship. And I think that's kind of odd for people. They're not used to that feeling. And there's a lot of unknowns. People also don't know what they might discover. Therapy can feel like a huge relief, but sometimes it involves, oh no, now I'm looking at the thing that I've been ignoring, consciously or non-consciously. So the stages of change theory model, developed by Prochaska and Clemente et al. And others, just to give credit to the researchers, says that, people go through these different stages. Sometimes they're thinking like, I really need to change my flossing habit. I'm only flossing twice a week. I really should floss every night. I gotta floss my teeth. I know it's good for my teeth. They're thinking about it. They're in the contemplation. But some people, they're not even thinking about it. They're not even, I
never thought about it.
It's like we're just too busy in survival mode. Do we really think about how much I talk when I'm in a group setting, as an example? I don't think about that, right? And then one day someone gives you some harsh feedback. Hey, you're always quiet. You never say anything. Or, hey, you talk too much in the group, know? So then suddenly they're contemplating, oh, do I need to change, right? Then there's like taking this, then there's thinking about it. Then there's like taking the steps before you actually dive into the change process. Then there's actually doing the work. So I think some people, they're not there yet, and some people may never need therapy or want it. There are many ways, and I have to say this is very important to say, there are many ways to heal in this world. It doesn't have to be psychotherapy in the traditional model. Some people find healing through dance. Some people find healing, through I heard something beautiful. A woman, an artist, was saying her family was constantly moving growing up. She was caring for her younger siblings. The only thing that was stable was the instrument. So her healing was going into this instrument and learning it really well. And she became a music artist eventually.
Amazing. Yeah.
But, that can be healing too. I'm a big fan of do all the healing, you know, do the one-on-one therapy, do the dance, community, do it all. But yeah, I think, the barrier, and there's still barriers. We don't know what those barriers are.
Yeah.
That's a question. Some people don't know. I have had a few people tell me I'm graduating in 2 months and I had no idea there was therapy on campus for free.
Yeah.
So advertising,
School can do their part too.
Yeah, and we're trying. Oh my gosh. Also, we'll hold groups sometimes, like meditation groups or learning skills for stress management. But sometimes people don't really show up. 5 people show up, then 2 people, So the demands of modern life have also, some people have told me, I don't have time for therapy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's 45 minutes. It's 1 hour.
Yeah.
Yeah. When life happens, there comes a moment.
Yeah.
It's there. It's always there waiting.
Yeah. No, that's such an important thing you said, that that's not the only way to heal yourself, right? And you did research about art or music as a therapy, right? Something related to
no, actually, this is so funny. This was a little chapter of my life before I became a psychologist.
Yeah.
I studied Middle East North African studies,
Oh, I see.
modern Iran, and ethnomusicology. So really, I was studying music, the culture of musicians and traditional Iranian music in the diaspora.
Oh, I see.
So at that point in time, I thought I would, maybe, but then I realized I don't want to be an academic and I don't want to do research and writing and, but I did interview a lot of musicians about their experience making music. Yeah.
It helped me. So again, student life, I didn't utilize therapy, but I had to go back to India and there was a COVID time and visa rejection. And I'm like, just again, was having a hard time.
Wait, how long had you been in the US before you went back?
So I was here for 4 years.
Wow.
And then I got my artist visa rejection, and that was really hard to deal with, because I feel like I had everything that I needed to be done, and the process was really, really stressful, the dealing with the lawyers and lawyers' mistakes. And if you're into film, you have to have agent and these, and try to get recommendation letters and job.
And the cost of the lawyer, the cost of everything.
Yeah, everything. And so that was a really painful process for me, just asking for people for things. And again, you have to make a film and you have to win awards. So the making film by yourself, that was also, challenging part. So that year was really challenging.
The year when you went back?
Before I went back.
Before you went,
the process.
process.
The process was really challenging.
Yeah.
And I pretty much put all my eggs in one basket. Like, okay, I did all the work. I won the awards, had hired a good lawyer, and he asked for 4 papers. I prepared 5 papers, documents, everything.
And you said you won awards?
Yeah, for my film.
Wow.
The film I made as the Best Editor Award and stuff.
Okay.
Short films as
I love short films. Okay.
So I feel like I did everything right, but I still get rejection.
Oh, gosh.
And that was, first of all, the waiting process was, I was so anxious.
Right.
Every email would scare me.
Yeah.
Is this the rejection email? So even when I got email, just opening the email was just like hand was shaking. So I had to go back to India, and I had a girlfriend here. So I lost my career. I had a job kind of confirmed at Sony Pictures. And so job is gone. Girlfriend was, you don't know what was going to happen. And
long distance is hard.
And just pretty much, what do I do in my small town?
Also, the transition from life in Los Angeles to, because a lot of people, it's like you get used to the new life culturally.
Yeah.
Then you have to go back and small town. Yeah.
The important thing most of the people feel like going to US is a success, and coming back from US is considered failure. Like, you go to US and you're like, oh, you're going to achieve all your goals and maybe citizenship and green card and all those things. But you come back and it's the biggest failure because you had opportunity to make your life and career and you didn't do anything. You just went to school and came back.
Oh my gosh. So, I'm just hearing but I just have to say the language is so extreme, right?
Yeah.
Do you hear it? You didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Wow, even though you had to go back, you did so much.
So much,
you
right?
did a film, you got awards, you gave it your best shot, you met someone, you found a meaningful relationship.
Yeah.
I know people born and raised here, they don't get any of that done. You know what I'm saying? Like you did a lot.
Yeah, but losing all those things suddenly feels a failure.
Feels like a failure.
It feels like a failure.
It feels
to a
like
lot
a failure.
of people.
I just have to point out that you didn't do anything. Language is the exact example of what failure emotion tells your brain.
Yeah. So at that time I needed, psychiatric help. And I had a therapist too. But then what I discovered was there was a classical Indian music class, and I needed to get out. So I joined that, and that just helped me a lot.
Wow.
I feel like even more than therapy, because that therapist over there they were good, but not the kind of right one, but they did help me. But the music class where I was just singing every day for an hour, your voice gets tired and everything, but you feel like you learn a little bit. And suddenly that kind of helped me a lot.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. So powerful. And I believe you.
Yeah. Even after coming here, I had, again, the girlfriend, we got married.
Oh, it worked out? Oh my God.
We had a 4 years long distance, but it worked out and we are married and we have a daughter now.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's so beautiful. Wow.
Yeah. But, you come here and then you have to wait for green card before you work.
That's right.
So
there's a new challenge.
Yeah. So, and again, you don't know how long. So almost a year I had to wait. And I realized okay, music helped me. What can I do here? And by that time I got more confidence. I was like, let me do something that makes me a little bit nervous, a little scary. So I joined acting and improv class, and I was so afraid to be on stage. But just when I did it with all the fear and everything, and after a few months you feel a little bit of successful, you feel comfortable, that gives you so much confidence. But basically that kept me going. I didn't need to, get therapy, or I didn't need to find a therapist or anything, because I know I had once a week I would go to this class and we would laugh and we would perform ourselves.
Yes.
And that was help. So art, as you said, join some classes that can help.
Exactly. And by the way, I have this funny joke. I heard this from another therapist, which is my goal is to get myself out of business. If I'm doing my job right, in some cases, people have a therapist they stay with for years because the therapist kind of represents something in their life, like a family member, something. Yeah. But sometimes therapy only needs to be for 6 months, a year, a few years. And then you're doing other things in life that are giving you that energized feeling and you learn some skills. I mean, you're using a classical example of a brilliant skill that we tell people to do. When you're afraid of something that isn't actually going to harm you, you're just afraid of it, like public speaking or an improv class or an acting class, do the thing that scares you. It's not easy. It's uncomfortable. Therapists can help with that. But if you can do it on your own or with a friend or with a therapist, what you find is on the other side of facing your fear, you feel so powerful. Yeah.
Yeah. You said a really good thing about what I said, it's failure, and you're like, it's not failure. You achieved so much. And a lot of people here, they are waiting for their visa. They're waiting to get the lottery, the H-1B visa and all those things. And one of the thought and big fear is what if I don't get it? Right?
Yeah.
Right. And I have talked to them and again, there's so much uncertainty, right? So what if I don't get it? How to, I guess, deal with that situation? What kind of positive talk you can have with yourself? Because you said you have achieved a lot. You have gotten a degree, here from US university that's valuable in any part of the world, right? And you have learned so much just coming here alone and surviving and achieving all your goals.
Right.
So I would just love to tell people this is how you need to think, right? Instead of keep worrying about what if I don't get it, because that time is just, you are in limbo, you don't enjoy yourself, you just living in a lot of anxiety and fear. And when you don't get it, then suddenly all the bad feelings come together and then you have to deal with bigger issue, right?
Right. I think this is a quintessential question, which is how do we deal with uncertainty?
Yeah.
And how do we navigate what feels like a storm?
Yeah.
There are things in this world that are not in our control.
Yeah.
They're just not. You did your best, you filled out the paperwork, and now you have to sit around and wait. And the truth is, I think, again, same principle, it is so important to validate the reality that, yes, it is uncomfortable. I'm not going to dismiss it. It does bring up anxiety.
Yeah.
But to let that anxiety take over every day every night, constantly, you know?
Yeah.
So how do we survive a storm or really terrible things happening in the world that feel out of our control?
Yeah.
First, we have to acknowledge it's okay to have feelings about it, but how can I not let the feeling control me? It's like this really interesting dance. You honor it, but you don't let it control you. So how do we do that thing where we don't let it control me? And the, you know, it's a mental shift from, oh my God, you know, I'm dealing with a storm to, oh, I'm going on an adventure, you know, and there are unknowns. And is there a way that this can be interesting? Could it be fun? The human brain has a natural tendency actually to always imagine the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
We've evolved that way. It's part of survival. You know,
Yeah.
what's the worst thing that can happen?
Yeah.
Okay, before I go on this hike, what do I need? What if I trip? What if this? What if that? Will I have enough water? Electrolytes.
So true. Yeah.
Right? That's okay. But when it goes into overdrive, all we see is the bad outcome. And it's a great exercise is to think, well, what's the opposite? What's the best thing that could happen?
Yeah.
Right? And to say, okay, I'm not going to be stupid and say only good things will happen to me.
Yeah.
That's unrealistic, you know, but to at least say, okay, bad thing could happen, good thing could happen, neutral thing could happen. And that's like the first step is to look at all possible options, right? We call it like a cognitive restructuring that the mind thinks cognitions of negative, but we have to also remind the brain, what could be good? And then after that, you know, there's a skill and people can kind of research it. It's called radical acceptance.
Yeah.
You know, this idea of like, we radically accept a reality. We don't have to like it. We don't have to approve of it, but we have to admit that it's real. And then given that, then what can we do to take care of ourselves?
Yeah.
You know, so if you're waiting for 6 months to find out about a visa, you know, that's, you know, acknowledge, oh, my anxiety is high. So now I need to do more to take care of myself.
Yeah. Thank you. That's, I hope it helps people because I have been there and I have seen people who are waiting for their artist visa or H-1B visa lottery, and lottery comes out and you don't get it. And then you're like, okay, I have 2 more chance. And, you know, it's a pretty tough process and the rejection, and it comes with a lot of emotions. And again, everybody has different, you know, personality with different effect. So yeah, don't carry that burden for too long.
Yeah. And, you know, I just want to acknowledge it is difficult.
Yeah.
It really is difficult. And it's so important to not be alone. It's really important, if possible, to connect to other people. They might be international students who get it, but they might not be.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes people tell me, I don't want to meet with people of my cultural background because, you know, they're going to say, so what? I have the same problem. Stop crying, you know? Yeah. So, you know, finding people, doesn't matter who they are. Anyone that you feel a good energy is kind, you know, and some people say, I can't find anyone, so I came to therapy. I'm like, great.
Yeah.
Because I'm happy to remind them of their dignity. Yeah. You know, you accomplished so much just by showing up that first month and a half that you were feeling like, if I die, who cares about my body and my soul and my life, you know? Just getting there was so impressive. Yeah. That's so remarkable. Yeah. Every day that you're doing this radical, courageous thing, which is trying to live in another country, and like, that blows my mind. Yeah. I mean, I've done it. I've lived overseas, you know, I'm the child of immigrants, you know, so I know I've witnessed what it is to, you know, have someone say, I'm treated differently because I have an accent. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, that's real. You know, that was my parents, you know, so, you know, I'm not minimizing it. I'm honoring it. Yeah. And sometimes a lot of my work is reminding F1 students, you are so amazing. You have no idea how amazing you are. Yeah. Oh, yeah, because you're too stressed out. It's understandable, right? Yeah. But just remember, like, internal dignity. No one can touch that. Yeah. Nobody can touch that. They can deny you a visa, but no one can deny how talented you are, how hardworking you are, you know, how kind you are. Yeah. Values, your values. No one can take that away from you.
Also, one important thing, there are more than 1 million international students in US.
That's a lot.
And you are not the only one who is going through this.
No.
We all are going through this. So don't think that I'm alone in this, right?
Absolutely.
Because when you're going through like, oh, I'm going through this, I'm going through like, no, a million other people are going through somewhat similar. Because at the end of the day, international students' journey is pretty similar for most international students. The challenges and the learning and finding a friend and dealing with loneliness and finding a partner, it's kind of a similar journey. That's what I have noticed. It's not culture specific.
That's right.
Yeah, because international student on itself is a culture for me, at least.
Right.
I feel like, because we kind of, and I had all the international student friends, so we all were going through the same thing. So never think like you are alone here, you're going through this alone. I think that might help, right? Just thinking that I'm not the only one who is going through that.
Absolutely agree. I agree. I have met with so many students over these 4 years.
Yeah.
Some people come for a few sessions, some people stay for more.
Yeah.
But I've noticed some of the patterns and themes.
Yeah.
English as a second language, the loneliness, the social group, the dating challenges, the academic challenges.
Yeah.
So, and then there's the backstory, which could be very personal,
The pressure from families.
From one family to one, from one culture to another, what's happening back home politically, what's happening back home, just the weather back home,
Middle class student who are financially not as capable, who have education loans, so they have pressure of like, hey, I have to get everything right. Otherwise, if I don't get a job, or if I, don't get the grades, this money will be like, I might have to sell my parents might have to sell their house. Kind of a thing.
Yeah. A lot of that pressure.
Yeah,
yeah. Sometimes feeling like guilty, like, oh, my family back home is paying for this, or so I have to make it up to them, or I really want to honor their efforts. By the way, I also see students of all age ranges.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen F1 visa students, they're not all in their 20s.
Yeah.
I've seen people who are older, people who already have a master's degree or a bachelor's degree from somewhere else.
Yeah.
And they're coming here to explore a new career path or a new chapter of their life. Yes. Yeah.
While doing research, I read one post where a student was saying like, my parents have taken a loan and I don't come from wealthy family. And every time I eat food, I feel guilty.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I just want to, that's something that we would explore in therapy. I don't want to dismiss, emotions are complicated things. Like, I would want to explore that guilt and find out, what is it connected to?
Yeah.
It's sometimes a negative emotion is connected to a positive one. Mm-hmm. Oh, the guilt is based on the fact that you love them and you appreciate them.
Definitely.
Is there a way to appreciate the gift without the guilt? We explore that.
Yeah.
Maybe yes, maybe no.
Yeah.
I don't force anything, but yeah.
I recently recorded the podcast with one of my friends from Tanzania. Mm-hmm. And Tanzania, if you have seen Lion King, Hakuna Matata, that's actually Swahili language in Tanzania, which means be happy and live your life, no stress. Right. So the episode was dedicated to how to make great memory as an international student.
Wow.
Don't live in survival mode. So we talked about a lot of stupid things we did because we were kind of together. So the question would be like, of course, you can go to therapy and, you can go to yoga and meditation. But is there any other fun thing to deal with stress, the everyday stress that comes with being a student, full-time student and, the other challenges?
Yeah. Oh, my gosh. I just love the fact that, I just love the fact that you did this. I love that. That's fun with your friend. I would say, look, there's a joke, right? There's a joke out there that says, how many therapists does it take to change a light bulb?
Okay.
How many therapists does it take? Well, the answer is it only takes one therapist, but the light bulb has to want to change. Okay. So anything I say, it almost doesn't matter what I say, what really matters is where is the desire of the person who is wanting change, and I'm a big believer that, when there's stress, when there's pain, when there's even suffering, after validating and understanding, if we can tap into desire, right? Not just your needs. Oh, I need a glass of water. I need groceries. Oh, look, there's groceries on campus. Great. I have support. I have resources. But humans need more than food, shelter, water, and clothing. They also need joy, right? Now, I want to differentiate. This is not chasing feeling good.
Yeah.
Because chasing feeling good can become an addictive cycle. You know, like I need to feel happy all the time. No. But if it's nothing but misery, that's not going to work either. And sometimes we have to do work on purpose. Like some people think, some people think like feeling good is like you either have it or you don't. But there's things you can do to pursue play. So I tell my clients, go play in the playground of the world. Is there anything that gets you excited? Maybe it starts on YouTube, right? Maybe you look for something funny. Maybe you go watch The Lion King. I love Moana. I just love Moana. That movie makes me so happy, or things that are silly. So I think, sometimes getting it connected to your silliness.
Laughing and smiling. I think laughing also cures a lot of things, because I guess you said emotional needs, right? Our needs to be, physical and all those needs, but there's emotional need and need to be laughed, to have humor in our life is really important. That's why, there are a lot of comedy movies and people go and watch it, because that's also one of our emotional need. So if you have right kind of friend, you just do stupid things, harmless stupid things, and that's a good thing. Sometimes every time you don't need serious conversation, and every issue is not serious issue.
That's right. We need balance in life. Actually, by the way, this is another skill in the field of behavioral therapy. There's this idea that emotions love themselves. So when you're feeling sad and you listen to sad music, guess what's going to happen to your sadness? It's going to keep going and going and going, right? A little bit fine, but hours and hours, days and days. So they say, do the opposite. So if you're feeling really sad, depressed, or anxious, don't watch a sad movie. If you're feeling already scared, don't watch a TV series that's all about scary things. Do the opposite. And it's an experiment people can do and see, if you feel sad and you watch a funny movie or a funny show, observe what happens to your mood. Mood is very, it's like the weather. It can change. Mood can change sometimes, if it's not like a serious, again, for the more complicated things, see a therapist. But these are little techniques. There actually is a technique. It's called the half smile and the willing hands. They did research and they found when people are really stressed and depressed, they're not even smiling ever. But if you just lift the corners of your mouth a tiny bit, and then instead of your hands like this, tense and stressed, you open your hands upwards, like I'm going to receive beneficial things in life. This skill from dialectical behavior therapy, I don't even know how I look or if I'm doing it right, but it's subtle. It sends a subtle signal to the brain, and it can shift the mood a tiny bit, and it's powerful. And again, it's not extreme, because, forcing it is extreme, intense energy. We want to calm things down.
I really like it. I didn't know about it, that emotions play with each other, or like you said, like each other, right?
Oh, yeah, emotions love themselves.
Love themselves. So
like anger, if you're angry, don't punch a pillow. If you punch when you're angry, it's going to feed more anger.
I think everybody should try it.
Punching a pillow?
No. Oh. It's just a reverse emotion, right?
Oh, yeah. Try to do, it's called the opposite action, right? If you think your emotion is, you have to ask yourself, is this emotion appropriate? Maybe it's appropriate, but should it be this intense? Do I really want to punch the wall? That's not going to be good. Do I want to yell at somebody? Instead, take a walk. Another great skill, hold ice in your hands, cold water on your face, right?
Oh, wow.
It's another behavioral skill. And these are skills just to help you in the moment. They don't solve your big life problems, but they help in the moment.
You're just not regular international student dealing with everything. What should they do? Like just daily simple habit where if they do those things, that they don't have to worry about issue become bigger, right? What are the things they can do every day,
Everyday things. Well, I work from a holistic perspective. So I think, when people are in stress mode, they sometimes forget or they lose track of the obvious things. So I think everyday rituals involve starting by care for the body. We're in a body. When you move from one literally country or land to another place with a new weather, new climate, I think we have to start with what does the body need? And the body does need some basic things, water. I mean, I know this sounds so obvious, but I tell my students, before you leave your apartment for the day, we're living in Southern California, drink 1 or 2 glasses of water, incorporate that into your morning ritual, Sometimes students come to me, they're like, I haven't eaten anything all day. And I point them to a place on campus where they have free snacks, free.
Wow.
For the students. Yeah. Bodega at Santa Monica College. Yeah. They have free snacks and free groceries, even, sometimes flowers and So, I'd say it's very important to think, what are the rituals that start my day and end my day? And, first thing in the morning, a lot of people do one thing, they grab their phone, and that's understandable, especially when you're an international student, right? Was there a message from home? How are things going back home? That's an understandable thing, right? Or what's the news back home, And that's important, but we can't 100% impact home in that moment, right?
Yeah.
The only thing we have is this moment in front of us right here, right now. I can lift my hand and I can drink this water now, but I can't force somebody thousands of miles away to drink water, to take care of their health, So the first thing is start with yourself. What you said, the life raft. Every morning, do a physical ritual. Maybe in bed, it's like, oh my God, I massage my shoulder because I woke up with a stiff neck, Maybe it's a child's pose, right? Do one thing before you pick up your phone. In some cases, it's take 3 breaths in, right? Or maybe it's a thought, today can be a good day. Today I can learn. You choose a mantra. Some people have a prayer from their cultural, religious background. Do that, right? Or maybe you wake up with your favorite song, So do a ritual. And at night, so many people, they're like, I have problems falling asleep, so I go on my phone. Even if you change the lighting, because it emits a light that wakes you up. So it's not really helping you sleep quality. I say to people, 30 minutes before bed, do something that is not your phone. Stretching, read a book, listen to a book. Okay, listen, your phone is over there. But don't have your eyes, give the eyes a break. And you're signaling to the brain, it's okay to rest, we can rest. Even if you're worried about things, you're teaching yourself you can manage the worry. Your brain and body need sleep. So 30 minutes before bed, again, maybe it's a little cup of tea. These simple things, right? Take care of your body, your mind, and your spirit in the morning and at night before you go to bed. What would you add to that?
I mean, I have to. I don't know about adding. I just have to listen to you and agree with that, because I make a mistake of just looking at phone as soon as I wake up.
Oh, I do it sometimes too.
And
sometimes.
But exercise is just a great thing.
That's one of your morning rituals. Sometimes.
Yeah. Just even if you don't run or just go out for a walk. You live in people who live in California, not in Canada or some other very extreme weather. Go out for a walk. Go to the beach. Nature heals us in so many ways.
Nature is so healing. That's actually one of the key things I tell people. Say, I don't have money. I'm like, nature is free. Even if you're in the middle of a big city with concrete, just look at one tree. There's a lot of little flowers and trees and bushes. Nature is healing. I agree. And look, I sometimes grab my phone in the morning first thing, right? And then I go, oh, I'm doing it. Oh, and I put it down and I go, hold on. Back to my ritual, right? So a habit doesn't have to be perfect. Big thing I have to tell, especially international students who have to be perfect. They have to do the visa. They have to do everything perfectly.
Model student.
There's also a time to tell yourself, and in this case, I don't have to be perfect. It's a very strange thing when they hear me say this.
That puts a lot of pressure.
Right, it's too much pressure.
There are too many gurus and coaches on social media who just achieves all their goal, and they are like telling you should achieve too. And it's just every person is different, and just to be a model student is a lot of pressure.
It's a lot of pressure. So I'm actually a big fan of anti-perfectionism, but striving for growth. So growth-oriented, not imperfect, which means, okay, I'm picking up my phone in the morning like almost every day of the week, but I didn't do it twice. Amazing. Every time you do a tiny thing, congratulate yourself. So those are everyday habits. An everyday habit is giving yourself credit for a tiny win. And psychology research shows that when you reward yourself by saying, good job, self, I did one little thing right, that actually kind of is more likely to reinforce or have the behavior repeat.
Yeah. So, we learn so much from therapists. I personally learn so much from therapists. But you said like also therapists learn from the students or patients, right? They talk to. Is there any important thing you learn from your international student that you talk to?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, gosh, I've learned so much from different clients, and it's hard to think of only one thing.
Yeah.
But I think first and foremost, I hear like very unique stories. I hear of people who have been through profound hardships, but I also hear about how they are reflecting on their experience and they take a message from it, right? They've learned, they've created art.
Yeah.
They've taken something painful and they've literally created art with it, right? Or they've realized, wait a minute, you know what? I can actually tell this person, how I actually feel. Those little moments of seeing how they have courage or they take pain and do something beautiful with it. Sometimes I'm like, oh, wow, that reminds me of a situation I was in before, or maybe a situation I'm in now. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting.
That can be inspiring.
That can be inspiring, right? Yeah. So in some cases it's like, okay, I've been through that myself. But I can't assume that what I went through applies to them. Yeah. So I always am curious, well, how did you do that? Yeah. What is your idea? Yeah. And in the process of really helping people explore it from their own wisdom, everyone has wisdom. It's a matter of, can you access it, right? Or cultivate it. Yeah. I learn, I'm now like trying to, because I had some of these moments recently. Yeah. I mean, they always just keep coming. Yeah. I'm like sitting there and I'm like, wow, I've taught you how to manage anxiety. I taught you relaxation breathing techniques, but now you're teaching me something, as I listen to them. And, and I think the students I see know, or the clients I see know, because I'll tell them like, wow, that's remarkable. Yeah. Or that's interesting. Yeah.
No, because again, you're dealing with international students who are really smart, talented people who are also, adventurous people who come to different countries. So there's always something, you can learn from them as well. And that's such a good, it's a good feeling that I talk to therapists and I'm also contributing some positive in their life or giving them some kind of joy. It's not just like, they're just listening to me complaining, right?
Though I will say, I know it sounds weird. People are like, how do you listen to people complain? How do you listen to all this pain and suffering? Yeah. And my answer is, I feel better, not because I'm weird. No, I feel better because I know that person is not alone. Yeah. The worst thing is to have a painful thing in life and be alone. Yeah. So even when painful, terrible things are being shared with me, I'm like, because I know that's part of life. Yeah. But also there's a lot of joyful things too. Sometimes a therapy session is just listening to the successes or the good news. Yeah. And we really soak it in, because sometimes people are like, am I allowed to feel good? Or why am I here today? Things are going well in life. I don't know why I need to meet with you. I'm like, no, you need to meet with me even when things are going well, because then we explore, what does that feel like that things are going well, right?
And sharing joy increases the joy, and sharing, trouble or challenges decreases the challenges.
You're right. Exactly. Yeah. Oh, that's beautifully put. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
You've been working with international students for, last 4 years. Was there anything you would feel like, man, I wish they all knew about this thing, or they could do this thing?
Right. I'll tell you this. I think a lot of people actually know what they need to do intellectually, or they're close to knowing it. Yeah. But there's just a lot of emotions or doubting self. And so the one message I think I want all F1 students to know, I get kind of just emotional thinking about it, actually, to be honest, because I think it's a message for all of humanity, but especially F1 students who are so vulnerable and also so strong, because they bring so many strengths, with them, but they are vulnerable too. My message is to really connect to their own dignity and their own beauty and like love for self, I think there's a lot of self-doubt. Yeah. And sometimes there's discrimination, in the United States and in many parts of the world. Yeah. And and so I want them to know you are so precious. You make this space better. You belong. A lot of people say, I don't belong here. I don't feel like I belong here. I haven't found people who want to spend time with me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I know you're right. It's lonely. It's hard, but you are precious. You are so precious. So, you really matter. And I want them to, connect to that. It's not an easy thing. It's not an easy thing to ask of someone.
Yeah.
And that's why one of my favorite skills to teach people is a certain type of meditation practice that I was taught.
Yeah.
And it's all about self-compassion and loving kindness for others and for ourselves.
Can we try that?
You want to try it? Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
You really are a courageous man. Just diving right in. Yeah.
I wish somebody had told me this when I was an international student, what you said, and I would have cried. I'm still a little bit emotional, but I wish somebody had told me that. But I'm glad we are here, and I'm somebody saying that, and I hope you can hear and connect and be kind to yourself at the end of the day. That's really important. The real kindness is to be kind to yourself, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Let's do the practice and so that maybe people can do it, and at least if nobody does, I'll get benefit.
You'll get benefit. Yeah, you can get benefit. Right. Okay. And I will say, some people they know themselves. They know, a meditation like this might feel uncomfortable. It might feel amazing. You never know what comes up. Yeah. And I think to kind of acknowledge that's okay. Because at the end of the day, you can then take a break and do something else afterwards that you know. But I think they've done a lot of research on this specific meditation. It's called the loving kindness meditation, comes from Eastern practices. And the field of psychology is like, anything from any culture that helps people, we'll do research on it. Yeah. And if it helps people with their mental health, their spiritual health, let's do it. And they did research, and they found people who have depression, anxiety, severe, like even maybe psychotic issues, or even just relationship issues, and issues in self-confidence, doing this practice had statistically significant results, meaning that there was some benefit when people did this consistently, even just a little bit every day for weeks and weeks and weeks.
Before we go, Isra left us with something. A short meditation. I did it with her. You should definitely try.